Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today to bring about the finale to our celebration of the occult due to the release of Dark Archive. So what is our final topic? I promised I'll look into our chapter of mirrors and fakes to see what inspired me, and something partially did. However, we also had the small one-page case files for me to look over, and which also had several interesting ideas. And through the combination of two, I believe today is a good day for Anetta Loremaster's Library, the show where we look at the real-world inspirations for tabletop, and maybe give you something to think about for your table. And the topic is Shapeshifters. I'd like to say up front, Whale Creatures are their own video, already planned for October. But we have plenty of other shapeshifters, some which have already appeared in Pathfinder due to diversity, but as usual I'll try to keep the library videos system neutral. With the introduction out of the way, let's get started. First we are going to start with an agent trio. So let's start with foxes. We are talking Kitsune, Kumiho, and Huli Jing from Japan, Korea, and Chinese myth, respectively. Foxes tend to be mischievous creatures, usually taking the form of human women to tempt targets and eventually lead them to ruin. The big ones include the empire-destroying Daji and the tragic story of Tamamo no Mae. That said, in Japan, they are not always evil. The younger ones tend to go astray, but with age comes responsibility and power, and of course, service to their deity. In a parallel my Pathfinder viewers might recognize, Kitsune are the servants of a powerful deity named Inari, and serve as her agent upon Earth. Therefore, they eventually become helpful creatures who work to protect the innocent and lead them to a greater understanding. After going through the awkward teen years, of course. We also have the fox's age-old rivals, the Tanuki, or, going by their mythical name, the Baka Danuki. These are what are known as raccoon dogs, which are a distant cousin of foxes, by the way. Biology aside, these creatures also have a long history with shapeshifting, them traditionally using leaves in order to mask themselves or inanimate objects. Historically, the two creatures' transformation powers came from them being interchangeable in many myths, and so it was no wonder that Kitsune and Tanuki were eventually said to be rivals. Though while foxes specialize in seduction, Tanuki specialize in making others seem stupid, which is ironic since they themselves are often portrayed as absent-minded and easy to fool. They lack their own Inari, but they do follow what are known as the three famous Tanuki of Japan: Danzanboro, Shibaemon Tanuki, and Yashima no Hage Tanuki. Next, we have otters. Japanese folklore talks about malicious shapeshifters who take the form of otters, the Kuwaso, who work to trick humans to try to save someone, only to be ambushed and killed. Not the greatest ending, but what can you expect of a cousin of the child of drowning Kappas? However, if you wish to see terrifying otters, across the Pacific Ocean in Alaska, the Tlingit people have similar creatures, the Kushtaka, only sometimes they work to help others. And by help, I mean they lure others into illusions and transform the victims into another Kushtaka, so they can survive the cold, apparently. Outside of this, the two creatures are equally malicious. Considering the ocean between them, the similarities are utterly unbelievable. I'm not sorry. Now, those are the big ones, but they are not the only shapeshifters native to Japan. Anetta is the famed Bake Neko, Not Nekomata. These kitties only have one tail. These creatures generally have the attributes of other yokai, like shapeshifting. But they often do attempt to live a normal life as humans, though their general wild nature can give them some trouble. They tend to be attracted to red light districts because why would they not be? And they are famed for eating lamp oil. Not that unbelievable when you realize much of the oil used in Japan at that time was fish oil. And as a source of nightlight pre-electricity, the oil was not exactly cheap. Always fears of money. Tengu are interesting. As opposed to being an animal with the power to transform into a human, it has a wide variety of appearances in fiction. Well, myth, but fiction. From monstrous bird creatures to a humanoid creature with a red face and long nose. This was eventually combined to make them shape changers, who can go between the two forms. These bird creatures are monks and protectors of mountains, known for their mastery of magic and the sword. However, it is usually pride, alcohol, or learning forbidden knowledge that has these creatures born from fallen monks. So to trust these black-feathered beauties always runs the risk of you falling as well. Then there is the Joragumo, the prostitute spider. This is a great hunt of the wilds, its children hanging onto it with webs, and sometimes breathing fire. Japan. Anyway, the actual hunting method of the spider is, you guessed it, disguising itself as a beautiful woman, luring its prey back to its web, and it eats them, / drowns them, / however the story goes. It's actually surprising people actually get married in Japan with all these monster women. But that said, one of the most famous tales of the Joragumo involves a man who falls in love with her, and still tries to marry her, even after learning what she is, only to kill himself when he is unable to. Yes, there are people out there who actually like spiders. But shape-shifting wives are not that rare, as we have stories from around the world about them. Ending our stop in Japan, we have the crane wife, the story of a crane who became the wife of a man who nursed her true form back to health, but is forced to leave the second he realizes what she is. These stories also happen all the time in European folklore, but is usually more intentional. We have creatures like swan maidens, or like the steel-skinned selkies, who can become beautiful women by taking off their animal skin. There are tales of men forcing the creatures to marry them by taking the skin and threatening it, only to have the creature leave forever the moment she can sneak the skin away. Almost as if blackmail does not make a healthy marriage. So Westwood makes it okay to go after random girls in the woods again, right? Well, no, for 2 reasons. First is, just do not do that, it's kind of creepy. Second, because there are still creatures like the Encantado. And what are these? Some of the most bloodthirsty creatures in the animal kingdom. Dolphins. You laugh, but while creatures humans are scared of are just trying to eat to survive, dolphins will torture creatures to death because they think it is fun. And apparently the natives of the region of Brazil were the only ones to understand this, because these shape-shifting river dolphins make the Kushtaka look utterly friendly compared to what they do to creatures they can get their fins on. Hands. Fins. You get it. But not all shapeshifters are beautiful women. Some are brave warriors. Ancient Greece had an army known as the Myrmidons, who were an entire tribe of ant people. They are said to have come about due to Zeus seducing a woman in the form of an ant. how high is that charisma check? Eddisois had an entire population of an island killed by a plague, and Zeus repopulating it by turning unaffected ants into people. Regardless, the Myrmidons were known as one of the armies who fought in the Trojan War, and they specifically served under Achilles. Also, fun fact, before the Industrial Revolution, something or someone who only followed orders were called Myrmidons. After the Industrial Revolution, we instead called them robots. Now, as we transition away from animal transformations, let us give a shout out to the Hindu Rakshasa and the Christian demons. Even though they tend to be poster children of shapeshifters, to just boil each down to a minute is leaving out a lot of information. But leaving them out altogether would be a step too far, so honorable mention. Same with reptoids and other aliens. Sorry guys, this isn't your video. So next up is changelings, also known as elves or oafs. The children of fairies who were switched with human children at birth. Or alternatively, a fairy elder who wanted to be coddled by humans in his last years. Either way, the changeling would usually not seem to grow as a normal child would, and would display strange powers or knowledge when they thought no one was looking. There are many ways to get a changeling to reveal its true nature, most of them considered today as child abuse. Sometimes the changeling would continue to live its entire life disguised as a human, but other times they would one day disappear back into the wilds. Related are the doppelgangers, the original topic I was planning to look into. Sometimes called a twin stranger, these creatures are, at their basis, someone completely unrelated to someone who looks just like that someone. Oftentimes, this is seen as an omen of bad luck, or the famed stories of the copy trying to take over one's life. But the concept is even older than that, dating back to ancient Egypt. The Egyptians and their mythology around the afterlife believed a soul was made up of 8 parts, with today's lucky one being the ka, a part of the soul which is shared with another person in the world, and allows them to have the same feelings and memories. This was the closest part of the various soul parts that modern readers would recognize as a soul, and there was nothing about them being good or evil, just them being the other half of you. So maybe wave politely next time you see another you on the streets. Finally, one honorable mention before we end this, because the Mimic was created for tabletop. It was based on the concept of aggressive mimicry, where a predator uses its powers of mimicry instead of the prey, but it is a 100% scary Gynax without any legend of malevolent chests beforehand. Still, if I am making a list of shapeshifters and fakers, to not mention them just seems wrong. And that ends today's video. And with that, Dark Archive Month is coming to its end as well. I would say we are going back to our normal programming, but there is not exactly a normal besides whatever I want to talk about. That said, I can right now give you a preview of the rest of the year. Next month I am devoting to the Moragni, breaking down discussions on the topic into 3 videos. October I'm going to have a monster month, detailing some classic monsters in the Galarian setting. Again, it's why I did not include werewolves today. November is the release of the Impossible Lands book, and while I am not doing any country videos on that at the moment, I'll try to keep the theme as related to that book as possible. And then I will do another set of Loremaster's library like last year. a nice rundown at the end of the year, and a chance for me to talk about real world topics. I was able to twice this month. Well, twice these 2 months. You know what I meant. But before all that, next week is your monthly God video. And when the Inner Sea World Guide also comes out, we'll probably have a related video in the future, but that's it for today. Time to close out the messing up a lot today. Time to close out the archive one more time.